Admiral Zekthon adjusted his crystalline breathing apparatus as he gazed through the viewport of the Dominion's Pride, flagship of the Galactic Council's enforcement fleet. Before them hung a small blue marble, Earth, the third planet of an unremarkable star system on the galaxy's outer rim. "Preliminary scans complete, Admiral," reported his tactical officer, a spider-like Veltari whose compound eyes glowed with data streams. "The primitives possess no energy shields, no plasma weaponry, no quantum drives. Their most advanced vessels appear to be propelled by controlled chemical explosions." Zekthon's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among his species. The Galactic Council had sent a fleet of 200 vessels to deal with these humans. A laughable overkill for such backward creatures. His own ship alone contained enough firepower to glass their pathetic world. Chemical propulsion, he mused, tentacles writhing with amusement. How quaint. And their weapons? Crude projectiles, Admiral. Metal slugs propelled by more chemical explosions. Some of their larger vessels carry primitive missiles, essentially flying bombs guided by rudimentary electronics. The fleet had arrived 3 days ago, broadcasting the standard Galactic Council ultimatum. The humans had 48 hours to submit to Council authority, abandon their aggressive expansion into space, and accept their designated role as a protectorate species. The deadline had passed 6 hours ago. "Any response to our demands?" Zekthon inquired. "Yes, sir. A transmission from their largest continent. Shall I translate?" "Proceed." The view screen flickered, displaying a middle-aged human female in what appeared to be a primitive fabric uniform. Her face was weathered but determined, her eyes holding an intensity that momentarily unsettled the Admiral. "To the Galactic Council," the human began, her voice steady despite the obvious stress. "I am Secretary General Maria Santos of the United Earth Defense Coalition. We have reviewed your demands. Our response is simple: no. Humanity will not bow to threats. We may be primitive by your standards, but we are not slaves. If you want our submission, you'll have to take it." The transmission ended. Silence filled the bridge. Zekthon's amusement deepened. Admirable spirit for such a backward species. Very well, target their major population centers. We'll demonstrate the futility of resistance. "Admiral," the sensor operator suddenly interjected, detecting movement from the human vessels. "They're advancing toward our fleet." "Advancing?" Zekthon turned to the tactical display. Indeed, nearly 50 human vessels had broken orbit around their moon, accelerating directly toward the Council fleet. "With what? Their chemical rockets?" "Analyzing their approach vector now, sir. Estimated time to intercept 47 minutes. Zekthon studied the tactical readout. The human ships were primitive beyond belief. Metal cylinders with crude rocket engines, no energy shields, no exotic matter cores. Their largest vessel was barely 2 kilometers long, dwarfed by his own 20-kilometer dreadnought. "Power weapons," he commanded. "Let's end this quickly." Plasma cannons began charging across the fleet, their distinctive whine building to a crescendo. The humans continued their suicidal advance, now 30 minutes out. "Sir," the communications officer reported, "we're detecting unusual energy signatures from the human vessels. They appear to be warming up their primitive reactors." "Reactors?" Zekthon consulted his database. "Ah yes, they use controlled atomic fission for power. Crude but functional. 20 minutes. The human fleet maintained formation, their crude rockets pushing them steadily forward." Zekthon almost pitied them. "Fire when in range," he ordered. At 15 minutes, the Council fleet opened fire. Brilliant lances of superheated plasma streaked across space toward the approaching humans. But something was wrong. The humans were accelerating, impossibly fast for chemical propulsion. "Admiral," the sensor operator's voice cracked with confusion. "The human vessels, they're not using chemical propulsion anymore. They've ignited their reactors and are using them as reaction drives." Zekthon stared at the display in disbelief. The humans had turned their primitive fission reactors into makeshift rocket engines, achieving acceleration that rivaled Council technology. They were literally riding controlled atomic explosions into battle. "Impossible," he breathed. "The radiation alone should kill them." "Sir, incoming missiles from the human fleet." On the screen, hundreds of projectiles separated from the human vessels. Not the guided missiles they'd detected earlier. These were different. Crude metal cylinders tumbling end over end. Primitive kinetic weapons, the tactical officer scoffed. Our shields will... The first impact cut him off. The Destiny's Wrath, a council cruiser, simply vanished in a flash of vaporized metal. Then another. And another. Report. Zekthon roared. The projectiles. They're not explosive, sir. They're solid metal, moving at near relativistic velocities. The humans are using their reactor drives to accelerate simple metal rods to incredible speeds. Our energy shields are designed for plasma and particle weapons. They're useless against kinetic impact at these velocities. Terror crept into Zekthon's consciousness as more ships died around him. The humans had weaponized basic physics, turning Newton's laws into instruments of destruction. Each primitive projectile carried the kinetic energy of a small asteroid. How? He whispered. How did we miss this? Because we looked for our own technology, the tactical officer realized with growing horror. We scanned for energy weapons, exotic matter, quantum systems. We never imagined anyone would use raw kinetic force at relativistic speeds. The human fleet was among them now, their reactor drives painting space with lethal radiation as they maneuvered impossibly fast. More railgun rounds tore through the council formation. The humans weren't just using physics as a weapon. They were using their own primitive technology's brutal efficiency. A communication burst crackled through the chaos. The same human woman from before appeared on screen, now aboard what was clearly a military vessel. Behind her, crew members worked frantically at primitive computer terminals while alarms blared. Galactic Council Fleet, she said calmly despite the destruction around her. You called us primitive. You mocked our chemical rockets and crude reactors. But you made one critical error. You assumed primitive meant ineffective. Another council ship exploded as a depleted uranium rod punched through its hull at 20% of light speed. We humans learned long ago that sometimes the simplest tools are the most reliable. While you developed exotic energy weapons, we perfected the art of throwing rocks really, really hard. While you built quantum computers, we learned to make every atom count. The Dominion's pride shuddered as a near miss sent shockwaves through the hull. Retreat, Zekthon ordered. Full withdrawal. Secretary General Santos smiled grimly on the screen. One more thing, Admiral. These reactor drives we're using, they were never meant for weapons. We designed them for a colony ship program. If this is what we can do with our primitive civilian technology, she paused, letting the implication sink in. Well, I'd hate for you to meet our actual military. As the surviving council ships fled, Zekthon stared at the tactical display showing the wreckage of nearly half his fleet. Destroyed not by superior technology, but by a species that had weaponized the fundamental forces of the universe, with nothing more than metal, physics, and audacity. The humans hadn't transcended their primitive nature. They had perfected it. And that, he realized with a chill that penetrated his exoskeleton, made them the most dangerous species in the galaxy.